Hello human beings, Power Gamer here, and don't mind me, I'm just currently testing a machine that will allow me to send messages to space. Watch! Suckers. It's crazy the kind of things that you can see from space. Antarctica, the Great Wall of China, Mario's face in that one commercial for Super Mario Bros. 3, it's a marvel.
Super Mario Bros. 3. What do I even need to say? This is hands down the most popular Mario game on the NES, and one of the most popular Mario games ever made. You can't talk about the best Mario games and not bring up Mario 3. And it is not hard to see why. It was one of the earliest examples of a video game with actual hype surrounding it. It was first shown off to most of the world in The Wizard, a 1989 movie that featured an excessive amount of Nintendo product placement that, let's face it, was the only reason people saw it back then, and it's the only reason people still remember it. But stepping back a bit, the game began development shortly after Mario The Lost Levels was originally released in Japan. It was once again directed by Shigeru Miyamoto and developed by Nintendo EAD, their primary development team at the time. Many ideas were thrown about, including playing the game from an isometric angle, but the developers thought that would be too hard to line up jumps, and they scrapped it. They wanted the game to appeal to players of all skill levels, so they kept the early levels simple and the later levels more complex. I guess they learned their lesson from previously. The game also used Nintendo's custom MMC3 chips to improve the graphical capabilities of the console. The game was initially released in Japan on October 23rd, 1988 for the Famicom, but it wouldn't be released for the NES until February 12th, 1990 in North America and August 29th, 1991 in Europe. But this long release allowed them to put a ton of marketing into it. On top of being featured in The Wizard, the marketing budget for this game was estimated at around $25 million. That's insane, but that paid off as this game sold over 18 million copies, making it the third best-selling game on the NES, and the top two were its pack-in titles, Mario 1 and Duck Hunt. And the praise this game got was incredible. It was regarded by many as the best NES game ever made and the best Mario game ever made, and those titles are still given to it to this day.
I had played this game before, and I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to finally play it on an actual NES. Did Mario's adventures on his home console really go out with a bang? I think we all know the answer to that.
The story of this game is a bit deeper than previously, but it's still really simple. Bowser sends his 7 children, known as the Koopalings, to invade various kingdoms throughout the Mushroom World, steal their king's magic wand, and use it to transform them into an animal. Clearly this is a problem, so Princess Peach sends Mario and Luigi to defeat the Koopalings and save each king. As the game begins, we see a curtain open, implying that this is all some kind of stage play, and we see more of that in the main game, as many background elements look like they're a constructed part of a set. This was a popular theory for years, until it was confirmed by Miyamoto himself. Now, I don't know if that means the whole story is fictional, if it's a play based on true events, or it's a visual style and nothing else, but it's not really important in the grand scheme of things. The game looks absolutely phenomenal. It makes the previous Mario games look like a third grader's art project. The colors, the sprite work, the details, this is one of, if not the best looking NES game ever made. I'm not exaggerating. And it runs pretty well too. There's still a bit of slowdown every once in a while, but not that much. And the music is also really good. I do have a soft spot for the original game soundtrack, but this one easily trumps it in terms of variety. Right off the bat, we can see one of the things that makes this game different, the world map. Instead of just going directly from one stage to another, you're free to select any stage you have access to. This was the first Mario game to feature a world map, and to my knowledge, the earliest game to do so at all, at least like this. It's essentially a combination of the Overworld from Zelda 2 and the stage select from Mega Man. And I like it, it helps make the levels feel more connected, especially since some of the level designs match their locations on the map.
This also makes it so you don't have to beat every single level in the game, but I'm assuming you didn't come here for a 15-minute analysis on an overworld map, and if you did, you clearly have nothing better to do with your free time. So let's get into the actual gameplay.
Once again, it's about running and jumping, but here there's a bit more emphasis on non-linear level design. There's a bunch of different pathways you can take, and some levels are structured in a maze-like fashion. Some levels even have puzzles that you need to solve, like going down specific pipes, hitting these P-switches which turn blocks into coins, and vice versa, and can reveal certain doors, and using Koopa shells to break blocks to access new areas. You can also pick up and throw things like Koopa shells and these blue blocks by holding the B button. When you beat a level, instead of touching a flagpole, you have to jump into this box, which alternates between having a mushroom, a flower, and a star on it. Jumping into it gives you a card of whichever one you got, and once you get 3, you get an extra life. And if all 3 match, you get even more lives. 3 mushrooms gives you 2 lives, 3 flowers gives you 3, and 3 stars gives you 5. The timing is pretty specific, but one trick I found is running all the way to the edge of the screen, running back to the edge of the black space, and then going back and hitting the block. That gives you a star about 75% of the time. It doesn't always work, but it's a decent way to score more lives. Lives are much more more plentiful in this game, not only because of this, but green mushrooms are more common and there are more secret areas which give you coins. All of the power-ups from before make a return, and they all act the same. Well, kind of. The superstar doesn't last quite as long, and for some reason Mario does flips when he's tall. But the biggest change is that the fire flower now lets you take an extra hit, so Mario can take 2 hits instead of 1, which I absolutely love. But there are also a bunch of new power-ups in this game too. The big one is the Super Leaf. It gives Mario raccoon ears and a tail. If you hit the B button, you can spin your tail to attack enemies. If you hit the A button while in the air, you can flap your tail to slow your descent, which lets you make larger jumps. And if you run fast enough, this little P meter will fill up, which means you can fly for a short period of time.
What? You've never seen a raccoon fly by flapping its tail before?
The Fire Flower and Super Leaf are both great power-ups. The flower is better for killing enemies, but the leaf is better for platforming, so it balances out pretty well. But they are nothing compared to the P-Wing. It can only be found in certain places, but it snaps the game in half. It's the same thing as the Super Leaf, only you have unlimited flight. So you can just fly over an entire level like it's nothing. The catch is that it wears off once you go to another level, so it just becomes a normal leaf. There's also 3 costume power-ups you can get. There's the Tanuki suit, which acts the same as the Super Leaf, only if you press down and B, you can turn into a statue, which protects you from enemies. The Frog suit, which controls miserably on land, but it makes swimming much easier. And easily the best one of all, the Hammer suit. Yes, you can harness the power of one of the most annoying enemies in the game. This power-up is insane. The hammers can knock out anything, and I mean anything. Easily the best power-up in the game. I love it. There's also this Goomba shoe you can hop in and it lets you jump on anything, but it's only in 1 level. All of the enemies from Mario 1 make a return. Goombas, Koopa Troopas, Bullet Bills, Lakitus, and they mostly act the same, but some of them have new variations. Para-Goombas now have wings, which give them an extra hit, and some can drop these mini-Goombas. Get off of me, you stupid things. Red and green Piranha Plants now act exactly the same, but some can spit fireballs at you, and some have these giant spike balls. We also have Bob-ombs from Mario 2 making a return as well, but there's a bunch of new enemies as well. Boos, which are ghosts that freeze in place when you look at them. Thwomps, which come crashing down when you walk near them. Chain Chomps, which are these large balls on chains that are nearly indestructible, and apparently based off a dog that tried to attack Shigeru Miyamoto once. Dry Bones, which are skeleton Koopas that are immune to fireballs and fall apart if you jump on them, but they put themselves back together after a few seconds. You got Fire Snakes, which are these little trails of fire. Flame Chomps, which are like flying chain chomps that spit fire and can be jumped on. Spikes, which are these little dudes that throw spike balls. Rocky Wrenches, which are these little moles that throw wrenches and respawn infinitely. Buster Beetles that throw these blue blocks. Nipper Plants, which are these little jumping plant things. Munchers, which are like Nipper Plants, only they're completely indestructible. And Boomerang Bros, which are almost as annoying as Hammer Brothers. They just throw boomerangs instead.
The world map also has special areas in it.
There's Toad Houses, which let you open a chest and get a power-up. These spades let you do a mini-game where you have to line up a picture of a mushroom, flower, or star, and if you line them up correctly, you get extra lives, with the payout being the same value as the cards. I swear this thing is rigged. You have to be perfectly precise to line up the star correctly. And finally is this End Spade, which appears sporadically and lets you play a card matching game. Match 2 of a kind, you get whatever's on the card. There's also Hammer Brothers walking around, and you have to fight them if you run into them. It's tough, but if you beat them, you get a chest which gives you an item. Anytime you get a power-up in the overworld, you can save it in this menu. You can use them whenever you want, but once you use them, they're gone for good. There's also some special items you can get to use in the overworld. A hammer, which breaks rocks, allowing you to enter new areas. A music box, which puts the Hammer Bros to sleep, letting you pass by safely. And a cloud, which lets you fly over level spaces. Like Mario 1 and Lost Levels, there's 8 worlds total. And like Mario 2, they each have their own theme. They also have names this time. World 1 is Grassland, meaning it's grassy. World 2 is Desert Hill, or just desert. World 3 is Oceanside, aka water. World 4 is Big Island, where everything is giant. World 5 is The Sky, take a guess what the theme is. World 6 is Iced Land, in other words, ice. World 7 is Pipe Maze, it's just filled with pipes. And World 8 is Dark Land, which is lava. I'd say World 4 is my favorite. Seeing all these giant enemies and blocks is just really fun to me. Every world has multiple fortresses, which act the same as the castle levels from before. They're filled with lava, and this is where you'll mainly run into thwomps and boos. These levels are also where you run into more puzzle elements of the game, since many of them require you to go in specific doors or pipes. And they all end with a fight against a mini-boss named Boom Boom. He can be annoying sometimes, but for the most part he's really easy. Just jump on his head 3 times or hit him with 5 fireballs. Later fights make him move faster or fly and then dart after you, but fighting him over and over again gets really repetitive. Every time you beat a fortress, it also serves as a checkpoint. If you get a game over, you're sent back to the start of whatever world you're in. The level tiles reset, so you could have to beat the levels all over again, but beating the fortress opens a locked door letting you pass by some of them. And thankfully, unlike before, you have unlimited continues.
Oh, thank God. If you didn't have unlimited continues, beating this game would be a nightmare. It is significantly longer than the previous games were.
Let me put it to you this way, beating Super Mario Bros. 1 and the Lost Levels with minimal deaths will take roughly 40 minutes. Beating Super Mario Bros. 2 with minimal deaths will take about an hour, 2 hours tops. Beating Super Mario Bros. 3 with minimal deaths would take about 3 hours, and that's being generous. And sadly, this game doesn't have passwords or a battery backup, so you can't save your progress. This means you have to beat it entirely in one sitting. And trust me when I say, that can get pretty exhausting, because this game has a really sporadic difficulty. It doesn't gradually get harder as it goes along, it goes up and down. Worlds 1 and 2 are fairly easy, World 3 is much harder, but then World 4 gets easier, World 5 gets harder again, World 6 is back to being easier, World 7 is harder, and then World 8 is the hardest one of all. I don't know why the difficulty goes up and down like this, but that's honestly my least favorite thing about the game. However, there is one way to circumvent the no save thing. In certain places, you can find this flute thing. This is the warp whistle. When you play it, a tornado shows up and takes you to another world. This can be good if you don't want to beat it in one sitting, but that's not how I'm doing it. I'm beating this thing from start to finish. The multiplayer mode from Mario 1 also makes a return. It works exactly the same. One person's Mario, the other is Luigi. If I'm being perfectly honest, I'm not a big fan of this game's controls. They're better than previously, but Mario's jump feels really floaty, so you need to be careful because it is very easy to overshoot jumps. And this game is mostly fair, but there are some parts that are just plain stupid. Like here, how was I supposed to see that coming? In this level, you have to get a super leaf, grab this Koopa shell, fly up into this specific shaft with it, and then throw the shell to break the blocks. That is so specific. The other thing I really don't like is that sometimes the mushrooms will go to the other side when it comes out of the block, and you can lose it because of this. Some levels even have special enemies you have to avoid. World 2 has this level where the freaking sun is chasing after you, and World 3, some levels have Big Bertha. She's a giant fish that can swallow you whole in an instant. So if you fall in the water, it's basically instant death, because it is insanely hard to jump out of the water once you fall in. When you reach the castle of each world, you have to storm the airship of whichever Koopaling you're after. These are the hardest levels in the game. They're absolutely filled with cannons, bullet bills, rocky wrenches, fire spitters, and bottomless pits everywhere. On top of that, they're all auto-scrolling levels, so you can't play the level at your own pace. You have to follow whatever speed the screen is going at, so you have to move quickly or else you can wind up dead, and if you die, it takes ages to get through the level again. On top of that, whenever you die, the airship flies to somewhere else in the overworld, and you have to chase after it.
Okay, seriously, who thought that was a good idea? That's not a fun gameplay mechanic, it's just an annoying waste of time.
Once you reach this gray pipe, you have to face off against one of the Koopalings. They all act the same. Avoid their attacks, jump on them, grab their wand, fall back down, and the king will give you a letter that also has a power-up in it. There's also the possibility of this ghost ship appearing in the overworld, which gives you a bunch of coins. It has something to do with how many coins you have and how much time is left on the timer. I have no idea how it actually works. I got this by complete accident. Well, let's just go over the Koopalings. There's not that much to say about them. Grassy Land has Larry, who just shoots energy at you. Desert Hill has Morton, who does the same thing. Oceanside has Wendy, who shoots these rings that bounce around. Big Island has Iggy, who's back to energy. The Sky has Roy, who can slam the ground when he goes in his shell to stun you. Iceland has Lemmy, who shoots these green balls with stars on them. And Pipe Maze has Ludwig, who slams the ground like Roy. And that's the last one. The Koopalings are defeated, and all the kings are saved. We get a letter from Peach, only to reveal that Bowser has kidnapped her, because of course. Now onto the final world, and oh my god, this is where the game really kicks it up. These levels are brutal. They have barely any power-ups and are filled with projectiles. First, you have to go through these levels where you have to jump over a bunch of tanks and the sand ship. After that, you have to walk over these 5 tiles, and there's a chance a hand will drag you down into a mini-level, and then you reach the final airship. It's the fastest auto-scroller in the game. The platforms are tiny, and the rocky wrenches are everywhere. Yeah, I just used a P-Wing for this. I have no shame. After that, we get more standard levels, and they are hard as hell. Then we reach the final fortress. It's a giant maze, but the main goal is to hit this P-switch and go in this door on the right. After that, we have one more tank level, and now we reach Bowser's castle. And thankfully, if you get a game over at this point, you don't have to replay the other levels. This castle is insane. It starts by having to avoid these laser statues, which requires you to run at full speed, go up this platform that appears out of nowhere, avoid these waffle-looking things, then you have to jump up these platforms that fall if you stand on them for too long above a lava pit with fireballs jumping out. Reach the top, and you get more laser statues before finally fighting Bowser. He spits fireballs at you and jumps into the air. You have to wait until he jumps and then run away. Every time he jumps, he'll break the blocks below, so you want to get him to break the blocks in the middle until he falls down the pit. And there we go. Go inside here, Peach trolls you, and the curtain falls.
Bros. 3 is an awesome game. It has some issues, but overall, it's a great time. It is easily the best of the NES Mario games, and I highly recommend it.
It was ported to the Game Boy Advance, it's on the Switch Online service, and it's in the Super Mario All-Stars collection. Oh, yeah, I guess I should actually talk about the Mario All-Stars collection. Well, it was a remaster of all the NES Mario games released for the SNES in 1993. The graphics were improved, the music was remastered, and the controls were slightly changed. Plus, it was the first time the Lost Levels actually left Japan. It even lets you save your progress, which is a huge relief, especially for Mario 3. Unless you're a stickler for the originals, this is probably the best way to experience the original Mario games. So why did I play the original versions, you might ask?
Well, because I thought I should look at these games in their original form. They're super important pieces of gaming history, so I felt like I should get a really authentic experience. What was that? Aliens. Maybe I should have been a bit more polite with my space message.